Hello all, welcome to the Random Thought Pod. I am your random thought leader, Bridge Livwat.
Like I knew it was coming and it was still funny. I follow the random thoughts and I am the girl who follows the thoughts.
Yeah, the girl is here to speak for all of girl kind.
All of us. I'm here to speak for women and remind you to drink your water.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast episode with Jeff the Girl.
Jeff the Girl.
Jeff the Girl is like a, she plays saxophone for, Five Iron Frenzy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was really interesting. I was actually kind of surprised. It was like, what is the podcast? I think it's the Black Sheep podcast with Mason Menenga and some other guy.
I love Mason.
Yeah, I know. He's
such a troublemaker.
Yes. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, she was called Jeff the Girl because she played as a boy in a play when she was a kid. And her name was Jeff in that play, and she was a tomboy back then. And then I guess that name morphed into Jeff the Girl. She has a real name, and it's a cool name, but I don't remember it.
And it's not Jeff.
Yeah, it's not Jeff. No.
But it's cool.
It's not Jeff.
All right.
It's not Eric either.
The first Eric of the episode. Just gonna start sneaking him in.
Yeah, gotta.
What in the name of Eric is going on? Like, I'm gonna use that.
I was thinking of giving Eric a last name, but then I feel like that ruins it.
No, it's just gotta be Eric.
Eric Espinoza.
It's like Eric Christ.
Eric Espinoza is one of our Patreons.
Thank you,
also,
Eric.
Jeff Smith and
Bill
Jeffrey
Goffard.
Epstein.
Oh my gosh, we went so similar but so different.
I don't think it's the same Jeffrey Epstein. But
okay, I hope not. We don't really want your money.
May or may not have killed himself. I don't know.
No.
So that's enough of our fake Patreon. Hey, I was thinking. Okay, I wanted to share this joke with someone that would appreciate it. We'll see if you appreciate it.
So much pressure on me.
So much pressure. So I was thinking about a gag sign, okay? Mm-hmm. So let's say you live in the state of California, because we're probably not going to say what state you live in because of the animal that you own.
Appreciate, yeah.
That we talked about last episode, which was like 2 weeks ago.
It's so long, I forgot.
Okay, so in the state of California, let's say there's like a sign that's on the bathroom stall, and it says, in accordance with California environmental regulations, no farting, pooping only.
I did not know where this was going to go.
And I'm just thinking about like how much pressure a person would be under. Because they're like, I am breaking the law right now. And I can't do anything about it because it's just the way my body works.
If any state was going to adopt it, it's California. That's just
I know it is.
Outlaw farts.
California is so interesting. Like I remember when we went there, like to the Disneyland, and it was like there was like this. There were signs all the time that everything's a carcinogen.
Oh,
which, I mean, I appreciate as an industrial hygienist, but I'm like, all right, they got some serious regulations there.
It's on everything. We don't see it much here on the East Coast, but like if you order something from California, like you're getting that stickers on everything. You can't avoid it.
Yeah, it's crazy that they don't allow you to
fart.
I'm glad you appreciated that. I hope our listeners appreciated that too.
Oh, I'm going to repeat that.
It's good to start with some toilet humor.
Absolutely.
It's what Eric wants.
The great uniters, toilet humor.
I'd like to do like when someone on Twitter like has a really poor view of like Jesus, like those dumb evangelicals. That phrase I coined
2
weeks ago. But I like whenever they have a bad view of Jesus, I'll say something and then I'll be like, "It's what Jesus would have wanted. May he rest in peace."
I've never thought of rest in peace for Jesus. Like, I'd
I did
also
have
go
one guy
like,
that
isn't he
corrected
busy?
me.
Right?
Isn't he busy?
Like,
Maybe.
he's got prayers to answer.
Yeah. It's like,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, there's been a couple instances too where people are like, Jesus is the only way to heaven. I'm like, have you heard of Eric?
I've seen those, and again, it kills me. My favorite.
No, there was a guy like where I said like, well, it's what Jesus would have wanted. May he rest in peace. And it's always like something like just like ridiculous, like Republican Jesus. Like I'm like, yeah, everyone should own a gun. It's what Jesus would have wanted. May he rest in peace. And there was a guy that responded, Jesus is very much alive. I was like,
What? This is new
I should have
info.
replied, big if true.
Big if true. I appreciate anytime it comes around that's like, yo, if Jesus had a gun, he'd still be alive today. And I'm like, how did you miss the whole story? That's not the point. Big if true, and it's probably not, but also, okay, what if he was? What if Jesus was still alive?
Tell the disciples to carry a gun with them when they went to the small towns.
Try that in a small
Just in case someone tried it. That's a callback to 2 weeks ago.
If someone asks for your tunic, try that in a small town. You're going to get nothing. Okay. Alright.
Man, I still want to make that into a pickup line. I'm not.
Try that in a small town.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We've done that in the city. Would you like to try it in a small town? I don't know. Maybe. That thing. Hey, I read this somewhere and I thought it was really good. If we don't allow criticism to cut deep, no change happens. If criticism doesn't cut deep, we won't be willing to change. I think that actually was from that book, Nice Racism.
Oh.
And they were talking about like these girls. I think they were like teenage girls that made some like joke about plantations or something. Like they kind of plantations. Yeah. And their first reaction was to be like, when they got in trouble for it, they're like, oh no, it's not my heart to be racist. Right? And that's like kind of like the typical like kind of white liberal response to being called on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just never the excuse, right? Like you should never use the excuse when you do something awful. Like I think like for me, like as a straight man, I know there's a lot of things that I can use my identity in a poor way.
Yeah.
And it's like if someone's offended by something I said out of privilege, it's like the right response is to be like, oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't need to explain. In my heart, I'm not a misogynist or a homophobe, or it doesn't help things. It doesn't. And so if we don't allow that criticism to cut deep, there's no change that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we have kind of these defense mechanisms where we're like, I don't want the criticism to cut deep, so I'm going to explain myself. And it's like, don't do that. Like, if you really want to do the work, don't do that. Like, it's like, okay.
Don't give yourself a pass. And just, like, let it go. I don't appreciate the, like, oh, he'll say this, but, he doesn't mean anything by it. Like, I understand he doesn't mean it like, I'm going to say this racist thing. Like, it's still not okay. And then once you know that, you're now wrong. And it's what kids do with like, well, I didn't trip him, but my foot was out and he fell over my foot. And I'm like, well, then you tripped him. I'm not saying you did it on purpose, but it was still caused by you. Like there's the accountability's gotta.
Well, and let it cut deep where it's like, okay, I put my foot out and that person tripped. So my own carelessness led to this person getting a skin knee.
Right.
And or dying.
I would hope not.
I mean, if this happened in a small town, it'd be totally different.
One or both of you is going down.
I'm wondering if like 2 weeks from now, like when the podcast is released, no one will remember that song. Try that
Like,
in a
what are
small
they
town.
talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you remember the guy with the red beard? Yeah,
Santa?
Santa, young Santa,
It's young Santa. Is
young
that the
Santa.
wait, is that
Who
the
thinks
Richmond
fat
rich
people
men?
on welfare are to blame for all of his problems?
That's the rich men north of Richmond guy. He has the
Yeah.
beard. Okay.
Oh no,
That's
I
right.
mixed it up. I
Wait,
totally mixed it up. Try that in a small town was like super old.
that's oh yeah, that's end of July, if I remember
Way
correctly.
back when.
Remember those times? I do not.
Hey, what do you think about kids on leashes?
I am here to tell you, leash kids are alive and well. I was on vacation recently, saw many large, I don't want to say large, but tall children on leashes.
Oh wow.
And there's certainly times when I'm like, that mom does not want to mind her kid. Like, she's happy with her margarita and she just doesn't want to worry about it. And then there's kids that I'm like, that child has no impulse control and will be gone if that mom blinks too long. Like,
Yeah.
when it's a safety thing, okay, not to compare a child to a dog, but it's already a leash. My dog's stupid. Like, he will lunge and run after everything. I love him to death, but he's dumb. And for the most part, he'll follow me around, but he could go. So that leash is there to keep him from like running across the street, into the water, into the harbor, over to the, like, I don't know. So in that way, I'm like, okay, if we're gonna worry about that, if it's a kid that just won't hold your hand, if you've got 5 kids, first of all, they should all be watching each other because the Duggars taught us well. Second, they did not. I'm sorry. But second, then it's like, okay, you've got a lot of small children to look after. They don't want to sit in a stroller. Sure. One of my best friends growing up was a leash kid, and she needed it. She's still nuts. I was not a leash baby.
Her husband leashes her to this day because her husband's umbrella is over top of hers.
Try that in a small town.
Whatever.
Yeah, she was a leash kid that would set free the other leash kids. She's a problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's a liberator.
That kid is rad. I was just like envisioning like a pumpkin spice latte lady.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what they look like, right?
I'm with you.
Yeah. She's got like the blonde hair, the wide brimmed hat.
Yep.
Long flowy clothing.
Yep.
In orange and tan.
Yep.
Yeah. So many of those ladies.
And they're leashing their children.
But she wants to go get her Starbucks, so she takes her kid and wraps the leash around a pole and goes into the Starbucks.
Like the kid sitting outside the Starbucks, like at the parking meter. Like, oh, mommy, I'll be back soon. Can I pet you? Oh, I got a Jolly Rancher. Like, can you have that? Absolutely.
I watched Yellowstone, and then I watched 1923, and now I'm watching 1882, I think. It's hard to remember the numbers. But I think it was it was Yellowstone. It was Yellowstone, where someone lost a baby. Spoiler alert, somebody loses a baby.
Jeez, I haven't seen any of these number shows.
And there's another character that says to this woman who lost her baby, he's like, my parents lost a kid too before me. And I remember somebody said this to my mother to comfort her. And she said, your baby knew nothing but your love and your affection in their short time on earth.
Oh.
They lived the perfect life. And I was like,
ugh.
Oh my God. I was like, that's really powerful.
Wow.
And then, later that character comes to him and says, like, thank you so much for saying that to me. It really made a difference. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know where people come to this kind of things, but I'm like, what a beautiful way of looking at grief.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that kid never experienced so much of the hell,
Fair point.
that so many of us experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I is like serious silver lining, but I also I saw a TikTok where they were talking about grief. I didn't watch the whole thing, but they were talking about this. Those who grieve will love you at a whole different level because they've lost before and they don't want to let go of the next person they love.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
That's
man,
pretty.
that's crazy.
Ooh, I like that. I'm afraid I don't grieve properly. I don't know.
I know. Me too. I am working on that because it's like all the changes that have happened with my children, very drastic changes.
Yeah.
And it's like I still haven't really processed it. I'm like, well, what do they need? What do they need? That's all.
Right.
You know, but it's like, how do I feel about it? Doesn't matter. Right? And so, but I think like grief. I know like my one of the pastors at my church, I did coffee with her, and she said to me that like so many of the things that you think are like anger, like you're angry about this, you're angry about how trans people are being treated, you're angry about, you know, she's like, that's actually grief. And that really like transformed it for me. Yeah. And like once I realized it was grief, it's like, oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I'm like, I can never change that. I'm angry about it. But it's like, actually, you're grieving that.
Wow. That's good.
And I think there's like things too that are like, what really messes with our heads is like when something good is happening and you feel sad about it. And it's like, that's what Rob Bell calls good grief. Where it's like, there's your kid's moving away. And it's like, you're sad about it. It's okay to be sad about it. Like, you can process those emotions. Yeah. And I think this is part of, too, like, coming out of evangelicalism and getting away from that whole, the heart is deceitful above all else.
Yeah.
Because when you have that concept of the heart being deceitful above all else, you're always telling yourself how you should feel.
Right. Right.
When in reality, what you should be doing is processing what you feel and working through it. And I think this is where like the dumb evangelical comes along and says like, you know, you can't be guided by your feelings. And it's like, it's not about being guided by your feelings. It's like what Susan David says, like one of my favorite psychologists. Feelings are data, not directives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm able to like, I'm feeling sad. What is that? And trying to figure out what that is and kind of riding out that wave of emotion and working through it.
My son is trying to figure that out. I don't know, he's going through some rough stuff internally. I don't know if being 9 is just the roughest age in the world, but he's dealing with his big emotions, and we're like, you know, well, what do you think you're feeling? And I don't know. And how do I find out? How am I supposed to know what I'm feeling? And I'm like,
yeah, I
have no idea how to tell you.
Yeah.
How to figure out like what's, you know, other than I'm scared, I'm happy, I'm whatever, like how to figure out, is something scary you're not thinking of, you know, like I can name them because I'm a grown up and I'm a 4 and I have all the feelings, but to equip a small person to be able to name their emotions and where they're coming from did not occur to me that this was going to be required of me as a parent. And we're just trying to figure out how to help him along with that. Like you're acting out in anger, but I don't think that you're angry. Like, let's figure out what you're actually feeling. Do you feel like your rights are being violated? Do you feel like someone's stepping in your space? Like, what are we doing? And I don't know how to explain a feeling, you know, without using more words that are also feelings.
It's phenomenal that you're able to have that conversation with your kid. A lot of parents can't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ooh, appreciate that. It's rough.
But it's like we're figuring it out, right? Like it's like we're figuring out the whole parenting thing, and you learn as you go. You ask your kids for forgiveness when you drop the ball.
Yeah, a lot. And I'm always telling them, it's the longest day I've been a parent. This is my first day being the parent of you at this age. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. Like, this is the most experience I've ever had. Just still new here.
So I've decided to take the term mother-in-law and abbreviate it. MIL.
Okay.
But you have to be very careful how you say it.
Yeah.
my mill, not MILF,
Right.
my mill.
I've never seen it pronounced as a mill. Like I've typed it out as
Yeah,
MIL all the time, but I've never thought of it as a word. That is a
I
dangerous
just
word.
I just love how dangerous that is. It's kind of fun.
Yep.
I don't know if I can riff on that any further. It would be
That
funny
I
if I
don't.
did, but I've got nothing.
I feel like it needs more, but I don't know what to give it.
Because that's like really, yeah, no, no,
Just like, nope, I'm
no,
not gonna touch that one. Sorry.
no, I'm not. No, it's definitely not MILF.
Nope.
Wait, that's insulting too. Yeah, I should not touch that. I think it was like from a sermon at church where someone said that imagination is expansive, whereas fear is constrictive.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That actually might be my wise pastor, Pastor Jess, the same one that told me about me processing grief and it not being anger.
Yeah.
And I think she was talking about like a vision for the church. And it was like, imagination is expansive, fear is constrictive.
Mm.
And I feel like this is maybe the primary difference between good religion and bad religion. Bad religion is driven by fear, which is constrictive.
Yeah.
And that's why we're kind of confined and we're saying who's in and who's out. Good religion is expansive, where we're inviting people in. And I just think it's a beautiful concept because it's like, what do we have imagination for?
Yeah.
Because my another pastor in my life, Phil Odd, he would say that faith is imagination.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow, I've never thought of it that way, but it really is. Like we have imagination for what the future looks like. That's what faith is.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Ooh.
I also think that a lot of times what prophecy is not just saying this is what's going to happen in the future and this is who your president's going to be.
Yeah.
I think that like a lot of times what a prophetic voice is doing is showing you what's really going on. Like being able to say, well, this is actually what's happening. Like when Pastor Jess looked at me and said it's grief, I'm like, that's prophetic. She saw something that was like, I think superhuman that she was able to see it. It's like, wow, that's cool.
Huh. Okay. I mean, it's still bringing forth the unknown, but just not in the future.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I think so. Like, I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that prophecy is like being able to call out things that we can't see and that directs our future. But it's like, what's the point of someone saying, you're going to be hit by a rock in the face tomorrow? Like,
maybe you could duck, though.
Well, maybe I could duck, and it's like, when's it happening? Oh, I don't know.
Just look out.
Like, I don't know. But I'm just like, I don't see the point in like a lot of this kind of like, I'm going to tell you the future. It's like, it just causes all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
I think. And I mean, people are always looking for that prophetic voice to tell them their future. And it's like, why? Why not just be surprised? You know, it's
people
like.
People really are desperate to know what's going to happen next. You know?
Yeah. And like, I guess for me, it's like I kind of see a trajectory of where I'm headed. And I also have a backup plan and a backup plan for my backup plan. But I have this sense that I'm on the path. And maybe that's prophetic. But it's like, I feel I'm on the path right now. And that's where I'm going with my career. I'm doing school right now. And I'm securing my future. Right. And so I'm like, well, whether everything falls apart or not, business wise, it's like, I know that I have a plan and I have a backup plan. Right. And so, but I guess the value of prophecy for me is like when people are able to unlock, profundity, they're able to say like, this is, like even just that whole, like, if we don't allow criticism to cut deep, no change happens. It's like that unlocks something in me, right? Like it tells me that I need to receive that pain sometimes when people are able to tell me there's something that I'm doing wrong.
Oof. I hate that for the most part change has to be painful.
Yeah.
And that it's brought about when something hurts. But it's true. Like it's how we learn. It's how we train dogs and kids again. It's usually through some kind of reward punishment system. And I wish it was more reward to make that change than a deep cutting criticism, but oof.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate truth. I think the problem is like some people are just more willing to give it than take it. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's supposed to be painful. And it's like, yeah, for everyone but you. And you avoid the pain at all times. And it's just like, I think there's kind of a point like where there's just some people in my life where I've done the work and they have not done the work. And they believe they're the person that's supposed to speak into my life right now.
Yeah.
They're the person that's going to fix me because they think I'm broken. And it's kind of like I go wash my face and they've got like shit on their hands and they're
Right.
like, hey, I think there's a spot right there. And I'm like, no, don't touch it. I just watched it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of like where I feel like every evangelical space I go into right now is like that, where there's just all these people that want to fix me. And I'm like, okay, let's not talk religion. Let's not talk politics. I don't even know how to be myself in this space. Like I can't go deep. And it's just so exhausting because I'm just like, I'm just going to be the silly guy. Right. And it's like, it's frustrating. I read this book by Sarah Polley. It's called Run Toward the Danger.
Ooh,
which is interesting because when we talk about like about emotions and riding it out and listening to your body, and it's like what is happening in my body right now.
Yeah.
What Sarah Polley talks about is like how she experienced a lot of trauma as a kid being a child actor in Canada. And she actually ended up with a concussion at one point. I think it was just like a freak accident when she was behind the scenes somewhere.
Okay.
And for her to get over her concussion, she actually had to get up and do things that put her in danger as a person with a concussion. And that's just part of recovery. Okay. Is like that's how you have to survive it. And it's like, and it just like kind of got me thinking about how like as much as you start like start working on embodiment and like listening to your body, there's times when your body's wrong. And it's like, this is like, I was just grasping this concept that my body has wisdom, and now you're telling me sometimes my body is wrong. Right.
Like sometimes that anxiety's alarm system, and sometimes it's just a lie. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't know. I fought it a while back. I was, just my schedule had put me like half a mile from the property of the church building that I pretty much, that I grew up in. And I don't know. I saw it so many times in a week. And finally my therapist was like, is the gate open? Like, do you want to drive through it like sometime and just see? And friends of mine still attend there. And I had, kind of invitations of going there and possibly whatever. And I was like, I don't want to go in, like none of that.
Yeah.
Not that anybody there would be like, oh my gosh, you went here 18 years ago. And, your mom was a big deal here 18 years, or even longer. But I was like, I don't think so, because I also don't want to suddenly freak out and have to leave very dramatically. And she was like, you could just drive through. Like, you don't have to go all the way in. You don't have to go near the building. Like, can you just pull in the parking lot and like dip back out? You can just test it and see what happens. And it took a little bit. Like it's an odd entrance that you're able to pretty much just make a full U without going anywhere near the building. And like that was week one. And then I went like a little bit back, and then finally and it was, my husband was driving at the time, and this other gate was open, and I was like, oh, it's never open. When that one's open, you can go around the whole, and he was like, let's go. And we went together. But like just like telling my body, no, it's going to be fine. I'm not going to see anybody. No one's going to see me. We're not going to panic about it. This building is just a bunch of bricks and stucco, and nothing's gonna happen. And nothing did. And sometimes you just gotta push it. Like, if that's a tiny, tiny thing. But, like, sometimes there's big stuff, and you just gotta be like, no, my body's maybe lying to me this time, you know?
Well, part of it, too, is, like, if you have, like, a particular aversion, the more you avoid that thing, the more strong your reaction is. Yeah. And so, yeah. I wanted, the whole time you were telling this story, I wanted to say, try that in a small town.
You could have. It's fine. I know you were just trying to be a respectful dude, but that's fine, too. You know, at one point... I know. It's all right. It's fine. I'm used to it. Whatever. Barbie movie. No, but, like, at one point, somebody did come out and kind of, like, look at the car, and I was like, you're a big building. You're a school. People drive around, but whatever. Anyway.
Did you see Greg Locke smash the Barbie?
I just saw it a little while ago.
So he had a baseball bat.
I don't understand.
With a Bible strapped to it. And he smashed the Barbie dream house, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know what he was doing with it.
I have a former podcast guest who is friends with Greg Locke.
Really?
Yeah. And he actually reached out to me last week and asked me if he could be on my podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of bogged down now, but yeah, like let's look into it like later. But I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk to him about. Because he and I differ so much.
Is he insane in real life? Tell me all about Greg.
So this guy is like, he has his own like podcasting network now.
Okay.
I think he had a podcasting network when I had him on my podcast. Our like first episode that we did together was him talking about why he's against social justice. Because I was like, well, that's curious. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him on my podcast a few times, and it was kind of interesting to see like if we could find common ground on things.
Okay.
But he's now, he's got like, he had like a Christian podcast network. Now he's got like just like a podcast network that's just like fiercely like pro-Trump and all that.
Okay.
And now he's starting his own social media site. And I'm like, it's just like all like, yeah. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
Dude's busy.
Like, yeah, he is busy. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to eventually, but it's a huge step for me to like actually engage with people like that again.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that's gone down since then, and like kind of like I was a lot more evangelical then, and so that was our common ground. And now I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And like when COVID went down, I just got burnt out arguing with people over stuff and like having to dispel like every single conspiracy theory they had. I was like, yeah, I can't do this. Because you finish answering all those questions, and then you walk away and you come back and they're just saying the same shit again anyways. Yeah. So it's like, it's not like anything changes. Yeah. And I just got so burnt out on that I'm like, I don't know if there's any point having any conversations with people about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so now I think I'm learning, like I'm starting to learn how to engage again with people, like on Elon's sex.
So bad.
And
Part 2.
Yeah, I think we should call this Elon Sex Part 2. It's gonna happen
all night long. Oh no. It's a two-night stand.
Now we can't stop thinking about Daddy Elon.
Oh no.
In that bathing suit. Oh, sorry.
Gosh.
Man, it's bad when they have unflattering pictures of people, and it's like you just can't stop thinking of that. Yeah. But
I think that's a you problem. Sorry, I'm not claiming any of that.
Natalie, I think it's Natalie Grace. She's like that Christian trans woman.
Yes. Love
and
her.
she like, I love her too. I also love Matt Nightingale.
Yes.
Those are both like very Jesus people that
Absolutely.
I'm like, that are not supposed to be allowed to be Jesus people, but they're more Jesus people
so
than any of the supposed Jesus people out there. So, but anyways, Yeah, so Natalie Grace had this like post where somebody had talked to her about how everybody has gay fantasies. And she's like, this is kind of like those same guys that are like, man, my X feed is just full of porn.
Yes.
Like,
It's an
that's
algorithm.
The algorithm.
Yep.
It's like, it's based on your behavior, man. Like, but it was just funny because I'm like, yeah, gay fantasies. Yeah, that's probably not something everyone experiences. So.
Like, bro, just say it. Say it out loud. Say it a little slower. Like, think about what you're saying.
But anyway, yeah, I guess I'm starting to learn how to engage a bit because I'm not intent on changing people's minds anymore. Like I used to be intent on changing people's minds, and I just sense that like people don't change their minds for the most part. And so
yeah,
the best I can do is I guess have fun with it. Because I'm not even like, oh, I'm planting seeds now, right? But
right. Okay.
I guess what's like happened to me too is like kind of being on the outside of evangelicalism. When I get together with like family and evangelical people in general, I just have this sense that I'm in a space where everyone's agreed upon something and they're trying to get me to agree on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
We don't have to do this. Like, can we just talk about something else? Like,
you know when a topic's like been brought up for you, like when you know when it's bait, not even to get you riled, but to be like, we should talk about this in front of him and see what he says and see if we can convince him. Like, you can tell when that they have like topic cards, you know, they know what they're bringing up.
Yeah, and it's like, stop trying to fix me. Like,
I'm
quite happy with where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah.
My kid's going into university, my eldest, and I'm doing I'm doing university, and like part of it is so that I can get my certification, which will give me more opportunity to take charge of things. And at one point he said to me, "We're just at different levels of boss fight," and I was like, I like how that's said. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna use that. That's
clever.
I'm
already like thinking in terms too of like, I don't want to be looking for work at the age of 50.
Sure.
So it's kind of crazy
to beat that big boss.
Like, 50 is not very far away.
No.
So, but it's like, yeah, I can't be doing what I'm doing right now forever. So it's like, so what's the next step? Lots of school. So transformed wife. What do you think of the transformed wife?
She blocked me.
Oh.
I've been blocked for quite a while.
So when Elon takes away the block button.
Ooh, good point. I can see her crap again.
Unless he makes it for verifieds only. I still think he's going to make it for verifieds only. It's the same opinion I held 2 weeks ago. If she verified,
she could pay and block me. That she would pay money to block me just makes me giddy. Ooh. Honestly, I can't remember exact. I was pushing back on something hard. I can't remember what it was, but I definitely got blocked.
I will actually Google it. Like I'll
Why
I'll
did
look
she
it up.
block Bethany?
No, I mean, like I'll look at my handle. Yeah. So I'll search my handle and their handle, and then I'll be able to see our last interaction, and I'll be like, oh, that's what it was.
Honestly, so I think it was on Facebook. I believe that she blocked me on Facebook, and because things were kind of connected at the time, that it just spread across all socials. Or she blocked me on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Like it was something. Like
so
somehow,
she blocked you on Twitter and Facebook?
I am quite blocked on all platforms, sir.
That's crazy.
I got the triple block. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm always kind of curious about why I got blocked. And it used to be super rare that I get blocked, but lately it's been more so.
I mean, if her critics are to be believed, that she had a nanny and her husband cheated on her, and she, like, if this is her kids don't speak to her, like, if this is all to be true, then she's just desperate to believe that she did right in something because she's got nothing else. You know, she makes me really sad.
Well, I know there was a point where she was essentially defending marital rape.
Yes. I
And it's
believe it's
like,
not such a thing in her world.
but I mean, it's also like a very easy thing to get trapped in, given the whole like heart is deceitful above all else, and patriarchy. It just sets it up for that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, I'm here to provide for my husband. And it's like, okay, so it's a sin for you to say no.
Right.
And it's like, and it's just so messed up. Like, it's like, that's the primary problem that I see with the religion in general. It's like, if you see God as somebody who will force people to do things, then you'll always be okay with forcing people to do things.
Yeah.
And that's a wide spectrum, and that's just a pattern that I see throughout evangelicalism. It's what makes me angry about so many people in my life, is like, they believe it's okay to force people to do things all the time. And it's like, you don't listen to people, and you can't convince them to listen to people because they know better. And it's like, and so transformed wife and all the dumb evangelicals, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, I might engage a little bit with them, but I'm definitely have no hope of ever being heard ever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna go and be like, well, she's corrupted scripture, so she's not really saved or anything. I'm not gonna go, but I really hope that she gets a stern talking to. Like, I'm not gonna get between her and her salvation and between her and Jesus. That's it. But she's done so much damage to others, like you were saying about like at least bringing good into the world. She's done so much damage to others that I hope that there would be at least a stern talking to before the pearly gates are crossed. Like, look, you're in, but you fucked it up down there. Like, you did some bad stuff, and I don't like that, but blood covers all. Get in. Like, before I change my mind. Like, selfishly, I would love for something like that to happen, but she's just got nasty stuff in her head. Like, I don't get it, and I always appreciate when people are like, no, her husband writes it, it's really not her, and who knows. I don't know her personally, so I shouldn't make too many judgments, but I don't like her at all.
Yeah. So I heard this, each time you forgive someone for something they did, it's an invitation to accept reality for what it is.
I did see that somewhere on the list. So somewhere the lists are syncing up. Behind the scenes
maybe I'm
there.
on the old list now.
Are you? But I loved that it was this, if you're going to let it go and be like, all right, things didn't go the way that I wanted because of you.
Yeah.
But I also can't change it. So we're going to let this go, and I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to forgive you, and we're done. Like, we're going to live in the reality that we're in.
Yeah.
Like, I deal with that with, I feel like I have to preface by being like, my husband and I don't argue a lot. But when we argue, it's always like, I don't understand how this ends. Like, if there's not I won the fight, which that's not how we fight, it's just always like, I don't know. Are we just going to go, okay, well, you said those things and I said these things, and this is the reality we're in, and we're just going to go like, all right, chuck it behind you and let's go forward. Like, how did we just call it? Like, how is that over? But I love this idea that it's just, all right, things didn't change the way I wanted them to, and they might not in the future, so we're going to live here.
Yeah. Yeah. Forgiveness is adopting reality.
And if we've got God's forgiveness, is he just, then he's taking us as we are, right? Like, if we're going to push that all the way across the board, what does that say for us?
Well, you'd hope that God's forgiveness, though, enables us to do better.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where I get stuck with evangelicalism, because I feel like they're like, well, I accepted God's forgiveness for that, so now you have to forgive me. And it's like,
yeah,
no, that's not how it works, man. Forgiveness is a process.
Yeah.
And it's like, and for you to say that you're entitled to forgiveness is like, counter gospel, really.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's cool that you're okay with God, but I'm not okay with you right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you should consider whether there's ways that you can make it better. You shouldn't just be sitting there and waiting for me to forgive you. You need to do things to actually move in the right direction to making this right. You know, it's not that my forgiveness is conditional, but my trust definitely is.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
I can't trust you again. And so how are we going to work on that? Or is there just going to be a gap in our relationship permanently?
Yeah.
I mean, and if there's going to be a gap in our relationships permanently, I can adapt to that too. But
Yeah.
you're going to have a hard time adapting to that because you seem to think we should be back to the way we were.
Right.
And
No.
Yeah, I guess there's no, and that's like where you kind of remove the heart portion of it, where like if you think the heart is deceitful, then none of this shit matters.
Yeah.
None of this matters. How I was violated, that doesn't matter. What matters is that I say I forgive you and I act as if I have, no matter what's going on inside my heart, because my heart is deceitful, so fuck my heart. Doesn't matter, right? But it's like, reality is that I've got this hurt inside of me, and I have to figure out what I do with that, because that hurt tells me that there are people that can't be trusted in my life anymore. And I still lean toward protecting myself. And so there are going to be gaps in our relationships. And I'm not sure how to tell them that.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. Because I know they won't receive it.
Right.
Because their faith tells me there shouldn't be a gap.
Huh. Oh, that's
I think
heavy.
this is why a lot of people just don't talk to their evangelical friends and family. It's like, we can't. I'm working through some stuff. I'm happier without you. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm working on me, and I can work on me better without you, smudging shit on my face.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to be friends with everybody, and it doesn't have to be forever. There's people that I'm like, no, I had great friendship for a good long time, and not anymore, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that's something bad. I think it can be seasonal. I think that's all right.
I got a bunch of relationships like that, where I'm like, that was a cool thing that happened in my life. That relationship was great for a season, and I cannot ever talk to that person again. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm like, that's, I wish them well without me. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a country song.
Try that in a small town. Well, it's funny, like, I find that there's kind of this typical kind of dumb evangelical saying where it's like, we're all about truth, whereas the left are all about feelings. And this concept of like truth and love, and where they're just like, well, they just want to love people, but we're bringing the truth. And I'm like, if your truth is lacking love, your truth isn't truth.
Yeah.
Like, without love, you don't actually understand what you're asking of people.
Yeah.
Your truth, you just want to hit people with it. Like you strapped a Bible to a bat.
And hit the dream house. Yeah.
Man, that's such a great illustration of what dumb evangelicalism is.
Like, that's it in a nutshell. You're really not doing anything. Like, and I saw the Barbie movie, and I'll go off on it for a hot sec. I loved it. And I was, I went watching, knowing, I was previewing to see if basically my husband's a little bit more straight-laced than I am, just to see if he'd be cool with our 11-year-old girl seeing it. It's PG-13. It's not that, whatever. And I kept waiting for it to get controversial, or like, oh, I see, they took this one little part and ran with. There's nothing. Like, it was absolutely fine. It's not attacking anything. There's no family values at risk. Like, I thought it was really good. And I feel like for the most part, I don't know if Greg Locke will actually admit to having seen it. Probably not. In which case, you're railing about something you don't know. And of course, there's plenty. I got to go with the youth group thing. There's plenty you don't need to experience to know that it's bad. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to jump off a cliff and know that I'm going to smash at the bottom. But it's just so foolish to me just to be like, well, because it's a doll movie, it's for girls and it's stupid. But because it's more than that, it's also very dangerous and divisive.
Yeah.
And it's not at all any of those things. Like, it's just dumb. It's just silly.
Yeah. Silly people. Yeah, you remember, like, I used to, like, do the whole plugged in review, like Focus on the Family.
Yes.
Yeah, where they would review films.
Yes.
I remember one time, like, they did plugged in review of 50 Shades of Grey.
Stop it. They did not. Why would they even do that? You can't be serious.
Like, legit, some dude watched it so that he could tell people everything that's wrong with that movie. I just think that's amazing. I'm like,
I don't even know what to say. That to have to, and I want to know how they picked, like, who's going to do it. They didn't let a woman watch it. It's a book and a movie for women. They didn't let the women watch it. Were they like, all right, we're going to let the married, usually it's like, we're going to let the married guy because he's allowed to have sex. So he's allowed to, like, watch the stuff, maybe. Maybe if he watches it with his wife, it's okay. Like, truly, who decided, I'm going to take that fall and watch that movie for us?
Maybe it was good for their relationship. I don't know.
Maybe it was.
The whole, like, S&M thing, though, like, if we want to get into, but there was Gian Gomeshi. So Gian Gomeshi was a guy who did this radio show for CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And he would interview all kinds of, like, celebrities and stuff like that. And the show was called Q, I think. Yeah. And it came out that he was getting accusations of, like, some horrible things, like punching women and raping women and stuff like that. And initially he was just kind of like, well, you know, I'm into some kinky shit, right?
Right.
And he was just kind of like playing it off like, no, this was consensual. He lost his job at the CBC, went through court, and I think, like, the end verdict was not guilty.
Okay.
But it got me thinking, okay, so it was consensual. I punched her in the face. It was consensual. And I'm like, how does that work? Like, it's like, okay, so I can punch her in the face. It was consensual. It gets me thinking, okay, so when was it okay? When did it become okay for her to be punched in the face? Like, did she grow up with an abusive father and he punched her in the face? Like, and maybe I totally misunderstand this, but I'm like, is there a point where consensual is just like, okay, this is really fucked up? Like, he cut off her arm with a chainsaw.
But she said he could.
But it was consensual.
Right.
And it's like, that's what it takes for you to, like, enjoy yourself? Like, that's so messed up. And
yeah.
I mean, and this was, like, I think when that story came out, that was kind of my point of view on it. Back in, like, I want to say 2015 or something like that, right? And since then, there's, like, Mike the Therapist on Elon's X. And he was talking about how, like, he's a former pastor, now he's a sex therapist. And he talked about how S&M is actually a really good, it's very therapeutic for people who have experienced abuse. Because it gives them an opportunity to be in control in a situation where they didn't have control. And I was like, what? Really? That's incredible.
Huh.
And so I'm like, okay, I guess who am I to judge that?
All right. I mean,
but I
sure
gotta say, there's gotta be a line where it's just like, you can't consent to that. Like, you can't consent to somebody taking a chainsaw and cutting off your arm.
I find it interesting.
I will not allow it.
If she was like, you want to punch someone in the face? I want to get punched in the face. Awesome. Yin and yang. Let's go. Try that in a small town. Or if she was like, oh, you want to punch me in the face? Okay, like once. Like, if it's important to you, sure. Like, which way did that go? Like, were they so thrilled to be like, puncher punchy, or was it like, all right, I'll do it if you want, you know?
I love how complicated consent is.
Yeah.
Like,
Ooh.
and I'm like, I think it discourages people from having a lot of sex with strangers, which I think is a good thing.
That's
I
fine.
think that
I'm all right with
I
that.
like the idea of people being in, safe, committed relationships before they
Yeah.
try that in a small town.
For as natural as it is, let's be real, there's always a danger involved. So it's like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and do it safely? Whether you're going to spread something or seed something, something could happen. So, yeah, why don't you be careful with it? And yeah, anytime a dude is like, what, I'm supposed to make sure she's into it first? I'm like, kind of. Yeah, that's a good idea. Just check. Get dudes talking about being able to revoke consent. That's fun.
Well, that's the interesting thing too, right? Is like in the act to be able to revoke consent and go in, because like even Aziz Ansari,
Yeah.
right? So his situation, and it was kind of like, well, it wasn't really rape, but she felt icky afterwards, and it's like, there's people that are like, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Why are people bringing this forward? And I'm like, I think this is still wrong. Like, I think that we just shouldn't be okay with people being in that situation. And I mean, maybe it didn't need to be public. I don't know. But like, and I think it was, I like that Ansari, like basically the next season of his show, he was barely in it.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. It was a great season.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's just different shades of wrongness. And it's like, I think we can opt for better and just keep bringing good in the world and not worry about what label that good is put under. Like, I'm frustrated that there's just this branding that is happening with, left and right and Christian and secular and all this stuff, when it's like, if it's good, it's good. Like, it's like Me Too comes along and then all these people are like, oh, this is bad. It's like, why? Well, a lot of women lie. And it's like, with this, the church's stance on this?
Right.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? You guys preach purity all this time, and now you're trying to excuse guys raping people? Like, it makes no sense. Like, you guys had such a great opportunity to bring your sexual ethic in a positive way. That's how I felt at the time. And now I'm looking back on it and I'm like, no, your guys' sexual ethic sucks. Like, you guys value you value covenant over consent. And our society values consent over covenant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, society understands sex better than you guys do.
I think so. Absolutely.
Try that in a small town.
Goodness. I have to count how many of those we got in.
Well, this was fun. I think this is a good episode 2 of this Elon sex in a small town.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Eric died for your sins in a small town. Oh, goodness.
Catch the girl on the X.
While you still can. It's not that kind of site, dude. Come on. It will be soon, I'm sure. Sorry.
I'm Bridge Livwat on everything. Actually, no, I'm not on Instagram. I do have an Instagram and I do have Facebook, but I'm never on it anymore.
Yeah, you're not. I noticed.
Because I don't like those people.
Mm. All right. What a bummer of an ending.
But I'm on Threads, and it's like a protected account, so if you follow me, I'll have to decide whether you're safe or not.
Oh, judgment.
And I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm going to get the girl on Blue Sky.
Yay.
Too.
I'll go try to be funny there.
But thank you. This was fun.
Thanks, fan.
We'll do more co-host podcasts.
Yay.
Later.
Apparently other people are on this. I thought it was just me.
October, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. Peace out, friends.